So you're very welcome to our athletics panel as we look forward to the Games with 1 year to go. Delighted to be joined by a brilliant panel today. Starting on my left, top left, as I'm looking at the screen, we have our shot putter, Mary Fitzgerald. On our bottom left is Head of Athletics for Paralympics Ireland, James Nolan. And on our bottom right is Michael McKillop, the very well known and quite legendary at this stage distance runner. So guys, you're very, very welcome. Mary, I'm going to start with yourself because the order of the screen. So this is literally a whole new world for you. You haven't competed at a Games. Looking forward hopefully to your first, and then lockdown happens. So how has it been for you? How first of all, I suppose, take us back to when it was announced that lockdown was going to happen.
Yeah, I suppose back in, I think it was March, like up to that, everything is focused on possibly the biggest competition of your life. It's all leading up to that point, and then all of a sudden everything is put on hold, everyone's in lockdown. It changes a lot, definitely. I suppose personally, being a student athlete, everything is timetabled. You wake up in the morning, you have your gym session, you go to your lectures, have a bite to eat, straight into training, and that, it's very strict and you're used to routine. And then all of a sudden that's turned upside down. Everything is put on hold. So I suppose, it was a shock, but I suppose I was disappointed initially, but I suppose being so early in my Paralympic career, I hope, I see it more as an opportunity, this year to get stronger, sharpen my technique, and overall be more prepared by the time the Games come around in 2021.
Yeah, I suppose you're quite young as well. I mean, and reasonably new to the para-athletics scene. So it's a massive opportunity for you in some ways to have that extra year of technique and strength built up that you have now.
Definitely, yeah. I suppose it gives me the time to kind of look at areas that I wouldn't usually look at this stage in the season. So I suppose my winter training went on for slightly longer, and now we're still, we have time to look at ways in which I can advance my technique and ways that I can get stronger because of this extra time. So again, I suppose I just feel it's important, even though it is challenging, it's important to remain positive and optimistic and see the positive and see the opportunity in it amongst all of this.
Michael, you're so experienced. You're hopefully looking down at the barrel of your fourth Games. But even with the experience that you've gathered, nothing really could have prepared you for what's happened this year. How has it been for you? How has the experience been so far?
Well, for me, obviously, you got to take it in your stride. You got to adapt. And I think over the last number of years with me being injured and going through the process of that, I think I've came to terms with how to deal with it mentally. Obviously, physically, it was strange because up north, we were restricted to 1 hour a day exercise. Obviously, the gym shut and stuff like that. But for me, I decided to get the gym in just before COVID actually kind of came to wreck the world in a way. So I had that in place, and it didn't restrict me that much in terms of my gym. And I guess with my rehab and my conditioning after my surgery in 2018, that's vital for me. And it's allowed me to progress as well in my running as well.
Last time that I was speaking to you, Michael, was trackside at the World Championships when you'd finished fourth. You had that long year, nearly 2 years out with injury. You were at the time disappointed, but I think had realised that it was a massive achievement to come back. Much like Mary expressed there, does the extra year that you now have help you to get back towards your best with that extra time?
100%. And I'd be personally greedy in saying that I'm glad that the Paralympic Games didn't happen this year, for the simple reason it gives me another year to catch up and where I missed out in the last number of years, like you said. So for me, it's given me a chance to progress in terms of my endurance. It's given me a chance to just be consistent And whenever lockdown came into place, all you could do is train in a way. And I used that time to really get stuck into my training, and focus just on that. I didn't have any distractions because you couldn't go out. You couldn't go out for dinner or anything like that. So that for me was good. And I think as well, whenever you've been out for so long, just that consistency gives you that bit of confidence that I needed, and probably the confidence that I didn't have to go and compete on the world stage last year. And now that I know that I'm progressing in terms of races, I've had 3 races already this season. I've only got 1 left, but that's 4 more than I had in 2018 and 2019 as well. So it's a great opportunity to show that I'm back competing and being competitive. And I think whenever it comes to Tokyo next year, and I step on the starting line, I know how to be competitive again. And that sounds stupid because I've been running my whole life, but you do lose that sense of little bit of my craft whenever you're in the races and what to do and how you adapt. And I think you've seen that in Dubai last year. I just wasn't prepared not in a physical way, just in a kind of competitive way, unfortunately. But I have an opportunity to go, like you said, go to my 4th Paralympic Games, and hopefully I can get back on that podium. Unfortunately, it's not a T37 race, it's a joint race, so I'm up against it with new guys and the way the classification has changed. But I guess I've never had an excuse to competing against them guys before, and I'm not going to start making excuses now.
It's great. It's great to hear you so positive, Michael, and you too, Mary. James, during the lockdown, you personally as the head of athletics would have had quite a few challenges in, I suppose, motivating athletes who had no focus while we're waiting on the re-announcement of the games, etc. How have you handled that, and have you found it difficult to motivate athletes throughout the process?
Not exactly. I suppose you have to admire these athletes for their focus and determination. So they've all had challenges in the past, and this was another big one thrown in the way. But like Mary touched on it there, and Michael touched on it as well, I look at it as the whole panel, and it definitely was an opportunity for new athletes to develop. Athletes like Michael there, who are carrying little niggles or post-surgery in the past, to develop and get ready an extra year. We have 1 or 2 athletes on the panel also who are currently in rehab phase from injury, and wouldn't have been 100% for 2020. So there's a lot of positives. The majority of athletes on the panel would have benefited from the extra year, definitely.
When, as head of Paralympics, unlike a lot of other sports, you have such a wide, varied amount of disciplines that amongst your athletes. So even just on this call, you've got shot put and you've got 1500 meter runner. So how do you deal with so many different disciplines, and is that difficult in general?
Well, I suppose if we look at it for lockdown, first of all, it wouldn't have affected us as much as the other sports, because I suppose number 1, it's an outdoor sport. 2, which you mentioned there, it's an individual sport. So all the guys are in different disciplines. So they're used to working away on their own with their home coach. So in the early stages, I suppose, when there was a lot of uncertainty, it was about having those Zoom calls around with the medical team involved, the physios and the doctors reassuring. As fixtures were cancelled, I suppose you're informing the athletes so they can adjust the plan with their home coaches and with the national throws coach. So at the early stage, you're keeping the athletes informed of as much information as possible. And then as time, like the athletes were amazing themselves, they went from this very difficult situation to the whole acceptance in a very short period of time, I feel. And again, Mary and Michael touched on it there. They had their home gym set up, had their training environment set up. And as the fixtures then started to come available over the last 2 months, you're informing the athletes and the home coaches. So the athletes who are ready and in a position to then compete are aware of everything that's available to them.
Mary, you so we've looked at lockdown, and you're a student athlete, as you said. So I mean, away from athletics, life has changed for you just in terms of your college life. So I assume that you're really quite used to looking at screens like this and having conversations similar to this.
Yeah.
How has that been as an academic?
Yeah, I suppose it's been different, but I suppose it's become the new normal, really. So just before, just as we went into lockdown, I was meant to go on a 2-month placement. I'm going into my 3rd year of occupational therapy, so that was cancelled. So that definitely had an impact. So the rest of our course was delivered online. So thankfully, UCC were very supportive. Also, I'm on a Quirker Sports Scholarship. They were also very supportive and making sure that we had the resources to continue our studies. Zoom, in fairness, it was a different experience, and of course, you had little issues initially, but like I said, it becomes the new normal, and thankfully, it worked very well. Again, touching on the athletic side of things like physio, S&C sessions, they were delivered over Zoom, and I suppose yes, it has become the new normal. But thankfully, I'm happy that I was able to finish my 2nd year over Zoom, and even though it was not the planned way, it worked out very well. And so I suppose it's so hard at the moment to plan what's going to happen weeks down the line. You just have to take day by day, week by week, what happens. And
You've clearly been able to balance things, though, because you've been competing recently and you've been competing very, very well. Do you want to tell us about your last couple of sessions?
Yeah, okay. So I competed, I had my first competition in Morton Stadium in late July. So I was happy to get a 42 centimetre PB, which, so I was really happy with that. So it's nice. Of course, you may see results in training, like you can measure, you can say that you get a PB in training, but Michael said, there's nothing like competition experience. There's so many things that you cannot practice in training. And I was just happy that the hard work I put in during lockdown came out with a PB. I got a PB as a result of that. So I was happy that my hard work resulted in a PB. So and then I competed then in just the first week in August at a small another meet in Morton Stadium, and again a small 1 centimetre PB, but 1 centimetre in the right direction. So yeah, just any opportunity these days to compete, there's so much being cancelled and postponed, and it's just nice to get out competing again. Yeah.
And it's just staying with you for the time being, Mary. You had your first World Championships in November, and that was a different experience because it was so much bigger. There was more attention. The cameras were there, the crowd was there. It was really interesting experience. Today, if all had gone well, you could have been competing in Tokyo. So how much does that World Championship experience help you to visualize what Tokyo is going to be like, and maybe help you prepare in your mind for what comes with the Paralympic Games?
So so definitely gave me a chance, kind of a glimpse of the world stage. So at the World Championships, I got an opportunity to meet many of my competitors that I had admired for so many years, and to compete against them and see what that experience was like. But like you said, there's nothing like a World Championships. The media attention, the crowd, the hype, the attention. It was good to get that experience, and of course, it was a fabulous experience, really. But I've taken so much from it in terms of the 2-week lead up into a big championship, what it's like, what to expect, how to prepare yourself in the best way. And I'm happy that I had that experience before Tokyo, even though it's pushed out an extra year. I have taken a lot from it, and I hope that will in turn help me at the Paralympics next year if I qualify, which I hope to.
Michael, you are back out racing, as you said. You've had 3 of your 4 runs already, and you really haven't missed a step, have you? It's gone well, and especially in your last race.
Yeah, like we said, being out and being competitive and walking into national championships at the weekend there, and was in the heats of the 1500 metres. And I guess whenever you're going up against the able-bodied, the top best guys in Ireland, it kind of sets you up for the competitive mentality, because I know I'm not going to be at the front and you have to get stuck in. And that's what I've done over the years within the able-bodied sport, and that's what has allowed me to progress in Paralympic sport and be as good as I have been in the past. And now that I'm back competitive in national championships and back in competitive up north in local club races, it really gives me a sense of hunger again, and something to try and improve my times that I haven't been able to hit in the last number of years. And I guess whenever you step on the track, for example, my first race back this year, it was progress, but it was rusty. And I think the last couple of races have been rusty, and it's given me a chance to see where I am. But you went from the first race, which I ran 4:13, and then at the weekend there I ran 4:07 dead. So it's a big jump in terms of it. And I would say that hopefully in 2 weeks' time, when I compete at the Northern Ireland Championships, that I can improve that time again. But I know my competitors and what they've ran this year so far, and it gives me a sense of, I think, ambition to try and get quicker and quicker. And I guess, yeah, you can think of times and where you have to be, but I guess whenever you come to championship racing, anything can happen. Anyone can fall over, especially or get chipped up in CP athletics. So, yeah, it should be an interesting competition next year, but I just need to keep on improving and get strong and fitter over the next couple of months to showcase my ability again on the world stage, and obviously at a Paralympic Games.
So you're running again in a couple of weeks' time, and knowing that brings down the curtain on your season. Do you have an aim for that race? Do you have a target that you've set, a position to finish or a time, or how are you approaching that?
Yeah, I think this year was a free swing in a way, and it didn't matter really what happened in terms of times. It was just being about competitive. But seeing that I've progressed with regards to my performances in the last 3 races, it shows that the training is paying off. It shows that we are making steps forward where we weren't able to, obviously, in the last number of years. So it gives me a chance to be consistent, and I think lockdown allowed me to be consistent, and you're seeing the results now. But again, it just gives me that little bit of confidence going into the winter training, because you're going to go into probably like today. I don't know what it's like in Dublin now, but here it's absolutely torrential rain. It's cloudy, it's wet, it's cold, but that's what I have to deal with whenever it comes to the winter months. And if I can get my head down and really focus that I'm going to see the results again next year, it will give me that little bit of drive and ambition to try and get on that podium. And that's the only aim I have come Tokyo. And I would be very, very, very disappointed if I don't get on the podium again. I set my standards quite high, and obviously going up against T38 guys and missing out on the podium last year, it really gives me that ambition, and I don't want to let anyone down, especially James and my teammates, because I'm probably one of the oldest guys in the team now, and I got to lead by example. And if I'm not winning medals, then all the other guys are not going to see that as a good enough performance, and I'm okay with putting pressure on myself for that reason, so that I can help the next generation of para athletes see that you can be on the podium and you come from Ireland, and it shows that we have ambition and drive, and I guess whenever you have a manager like James who has been there and done that himself, it shows that we are moving direction.
That it's you put a lot of pressure on yourself, Michael, but I suppose you've earned that with your track record. You've done so much, and Mary is here on the call, and she's at a totally different end of her career. So do you find yourself assuming a bit of a leadership role amongst those younger athletes who are there will be hopefully quite a sizable amount of athletes who will be going to Tokyo as their first games? So do you find yourself taking them under your wing a little bit?
Yeah, exactly. Obviously Mary was at her first World Championships last year, and I think whenever we went as a team, it showed a great mentality. It's a small nation in a way, and it's a small athletics team that go away, but we compete really at a high level. And I think whenever we were in Dubai, we were socializing with each other every single day. It wasn't like whenever we were not competing or not training that we were sat in our rooms doing nothing. And I think that was a great sense of coming together as a group of athletes and people. And I guess being able to talk to Mary before she competed and all the other athletes, that it gives me a sense that I can help them in any shape or form whenever it comes to their performance, but also making them realize that they're their own athlete and they make their own choices. Like for me, diet, whenever it comes to competition, I struggle when I'm in foreign countries. So I have to adapt the way I eat. Many people would look at me and kind of go, oh, that's not the right way of eating. But I always try and explain to people that do it your way. And if you feel comfortable doing it your way, then that's the best way for it. Because I think a lot of athletes might go to the world stage and think to themselves, oh, I have to do exactly what they're doing because we're at the World Championships and this is supposedly the way elite athletes live their lives. But no, I think especially when you go to an athlete's village, for instance, whenever World Championships we're staying in hotels, but whenever you go to an athlete's village, it's like their own wee city in a way. And there's so many people around. There's so many different sports that you kind of get engrossed in, or you kind of can watch from the village, and you meet different people. And I think whenever it does come to Tokyo, that's another thing of having to adapt and doing it your own way. Because, like I said, there's so many things to do in the village, but you have to know yourself what to do and when to do it. And I guess if I can lead them in that way, then yeah, that for me is a good role to have.
James, when we talk about leadership, your role is obviously one of the most important. Michael has spoken about all the different sports there, knitting together and having a group dynamic, which is something that you obviously would like to foster. So how do you go about that with such a diverse group?
Yeah, well, it's very easy when you have athletes like with the experience of Michael, Jason, Eve McCarthy, who've been around winning medals at major championships for years now. So like it's the guys are fostering the next. What we do is, I suppose, we have different camps and get-togethers that the guys train on and together. We would have done that before the World Championships in Dubai, and we'll do it again in the lead up to Tokyo, all going well. And we'll have a similar year of international camps, competitions. European Championships were also cancelled this year, so we can't forget about them. They're planned on for next year as well, and then the Paralympic Games. So it's going to be a busy year. Fingers crossed.
You must be quite pleased, though, when you look at how the athletes have come out of lockdown and are currently competing. Just Mary and Michael alone have both had really encouraging events to bring the season to an end. You must be very encouraged yourself that the athletes have used their time well, have come through it stronger, and are ready to go and represent themselves at maybe a higher level than they've reached before.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think they did amazingly well. It was challenging, but it also gave them the time to work on specific areas that they had identified themselves to improve. And we actually, as a team, find ourselves in a really strong situation. So at the World Championships, Jason Smith, Michael on the call here, and Niamh McCarthy, they won automatic slots for Ireland for Tokyo. And then the next step is that how many athletes can we get ranked in the top 6 in the world to get more slots for Ireland? And both Greta and Mary, coming out of lockdown, got themselves up ranked in the top 6 in the world. So that's as much, I would say that's more than we would have been looking for coming out of lockdown. So it's been really good.
Guys, it's so great to hear everyone's being so positive despite what's been such a massive disruption to your own lives and your lives as athletes. I'd like to wish you all the very best of luck going forward. Michael, in your last race of the season, Mary, with what's left of your season, and hopefully this time next year we'll be talking from Tokyo with some good news.